So today I'm here talking to Big Nick about his game Domina, which is an arena battler and political wrangling simulator where players must buy, sell, and train gladiators and manage political relationships to maximize opportunities and thus victories in the arena. Big Nick, welcome to the show. Thanks for making the time. Can you tell me a bit more about this awesome game called Domina?
Well, thanks for having me. It is, as you said, an awesome game. Um, it's all pixel art.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the surface, it may not look all that deep, but I've spent a lot of time. There's a lot of deep mechanics to it that I think people will enjoy discovering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's got good art. It's got good music. It's got a bit of a story. It's not great yet, but we're still in beta, so.
Yeah, I've been seeing the screenshots on Twitter, and I had a look at some of your press kit stuff with the video. It's quite impressive. I mean, it's pixel art's the latest rage, and you've got a really good style, and it's very it's violent. There's lots of bloody pixels everywhere, and you mentioned the music. You actually made all the music, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It was I had to. Nobody would let me make another game and not do the music.
That's pretty cool. I mean, so what inspired? I mean, you're obviously quite talented. Here you are. You're doing all the pixel art. You're doing the programming. You're doing the actual music. Like you're doing the lot. Yeah, is that right?
For the most part, I'd say I'm doing about 85% of the graphics. I've been through a couple artists, and usually when they see the scope of work, they're like, I don't know if I can do it,
Mm-hmm.
and they tend to back out. So I've been through a couple artists, and but it's not 100% a one man show. I've got an artist doing some of the boss equipment right now, and I've had a couple of Twitch streamers do the voice acting for it. So
Yeah,
there's been some help.
but yeah,
And I
more
wouldn't say that
more or
I'm
less.
necessarily talented. I think it's just a matter of determined.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think. I mean, if you don't have talent, at least you can have determination. So.
I was gonna say the old saying is, what is it? Hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. But yeah, you've put a lot of. I mean, I've been seeing this for a while now. You've actually been doing it for a while and just putting the effort in. I think that's a thing with a lot of independent game developers. They start off with a great idea, they do some pixel art, but then it doesn't sort of go past that.
hmm Well, I mean, I've done that too. I have a couple projects that even showed promise, and then I just sort of stopped working on them. So I know
Hmm.
what that's like.
So what was the
But I also know
inspiration?
what it's.
Sorry about that. So I was just
I
going to say, what was the
I've been
inspiration to keep
watching.
going on this one?
I don't know. I think maybe because of the other two that I didn't finish. I thought I can't back out on another one. I got to finish this one. So.
Right. And what were those other two games prior to this?
Well, I released Corporate Lifestyle Simulator,
Hmm.
but then I had two prototypes. One of them was called The Shepherd in Dark Times, which I still kind of want to get back to, but what I had in my head was way beyond what I could actually do. So
Hmm.
I naively thought, well, I'll just do a little pixel art gladiators game I can whip out in 6 months, 8 months,
And how long's it
and that was
been?
just about 2.5 years ago. About
Yeah,
two. Yeah.
yeah, man.
So
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, what actually inspired you to make this particular like a gladiator game?
well, I was sitting around watching Spartacus, and I think a
Huh?
lot of that comes through. I hope it comes through. It was a huge influence.
Hmm.
It was just the idea of it's not really a story many people tell, and the fact that people were really enjoying the story, like the prequel season that they did. It was less about the gladiators and more about these people who were keeping humans as slaves, and they still
Hmm.
managed to tell a really captivating story. And it was like, it's not really an anti-hero story, but it's like these people are not good people, but they still manage to have compelling, there's compelling dialogue, there's compelling plot points and stuff like that. So I thought, yeah, I want to try to do something with that, and just the idea of you know potentially fighting these little gladiators dudes. I'm like, I didn't think that I hadn't seen any games that were like that were specifically about gladiators. I know, like, now I've researched it and I've seen a couple other ones, but
Hmm.
it seems surprising to me that there aren't a lot more, because it seems like it's it's something that you can make a lot of different types of games about, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like you seem, it's not only just about the battles as well. Like I was looking at the videos and reading about the description. So a lot of it's also just, yeah, as it's mentioned in the description, the political wrangling and maximizing the team. So it's sort of more or less like one of those soccer manager games or those sport manager games mixed with the gladiatorial stuff, mixed with a bit of sort of diplomacy type thing. So you've got to, from my understanding, just from what I've seen, you've got to wrangle this team together of athletes more or less that then fight against each other. But then it's whether or not you're going to win or what advantages you have in the arena are based on your dealings outside the actual battle.
Yeah, yeah, and my own personal approach is that I want to, I don't want to have, I want it to be ethical. I want you to be rewarded for making ethical decisions and be punished for making unethical ones, just because I'm old fashioned and
Mm-hmm.
I like the good guy to win. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, it seems like that should be pretty simple in terms of people should know that, okay, if I do things that are good, I should be rewarded, and if I do things that are bad, I'll be punished. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to get that home. Like that's sort of a main mechanic. Like if you live well, then you're rewarded.
So what's
If
an
you're a dick,
example?
then
What's an example of okay? So what's an example of living well versus being a dick in Domina?
yeah. Well, these little story events will pop up, and a lot of them are just really innocuous. Like you drop a sandwich on the floor, like, well, what do you do? But some of them are about, well, these, you discover a slave, and it's a young girl, and these two, creepy old dudes are both vying for it. Like, hey, I want this human being, and it's up to you to decide who this person's going to go to, or should you defend them and say, no, it's, I'm going to defend this. This is a person. It's not a slave. And I mean, within the game, it's just a pixel art game, so the user's probably not going to think about it too much, but it's still an indicator of something. It's still like if you're in this practice realm of Rome, what would you do? What kind of a Roman would you be? And my hypothesis is that most people would be would be complete assholes. So
This is it. You've kind of got, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, kind of thing. So it's maybe
exactly,
maybe the
exactly.
modern day sensibilities don't sort of apply back in those days. In those days, it's like, well, look, this goes against my current morals, but holy shit, if I'm going to win this tournament, I've got to treat this person like a piece of shit, and that's how you get to the top.
Yeah, and because it's something that everybody else around you, all of your peers, your friends, your family, they'd be telling you that's okay. Like
Hmm.
that's how you treat slaves. They're not real people. So to have grown up in a culture like that, well, like that for us is like
Yeah,
pretty.
completely
We
alien.
think no, yeah, but we think no, we wouldn't turn out like that because even if our society told us something else, we would have the strength of character to say no. But I don't think it would have been that cut and dry. I think it would have been a lot. There would have been a struggle there. Like I worked in a government office for 11 years, and my struggle was with seeing all this money coming in and being misused, and it made me feel
Hmm.
guilty and shitty. And I thought, what if I was doing something even worse?
Hmm.
Like as somebody who owned human beings, like that would be a lot worse. Think of the
Yeah.
struggle that you would feel with that. So
Hmm.
that's why I think it's strange. Why are we not hearing more about these stories where people have this ethical dilemma about something that's pretty profound, something that we did as humans
Hmm.
within the past few thousand years. So,
Yeah, I mean,
and it's
certain parts of the world it's still going on now, but you don't actually hear about it, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. That's well. It seems like a pretty deep game from that angle. I mean, a lot of the screenshots I saw, I thought, this is just going to be about stabbing and shooting. I mean, but the political side of it or the moral side of it, that sounds pretty interesting, and I think that'll probably sort of widen out the appeal of the game at least because it's not just about stabbing and slashing, but with regards to the violent side of it, the pixel art for that was just amazing. So you've got like this arena with like lions and dudes wearing armor and with big spears and chopping each other's arms off and stuff like that. I mean, with the actual gameplay, tell me a bit about that. Like, tell me about how the gameplay works.
Well, yeah, like a lot of the stuff that really gets a lot of traction on Twitter is just the fighting and the bloodshed, and it's because it looks good. It's bite sized, and people like it, but it's hard to show, all the other stuff, the political stuff, and the it's boring to show some of the stuff where you're upgrading your gladiators. So a lot of the time you just spend in the ludus, and you're basically deciding. you have these things called Jupiter's card, Jupiter's blessings,
Hmm.
that you can apply to your gladiators. So you have to figure out how to, how to upgrade them in the right ways, how to train them in the right ways. Excuse me, and how to, how to manage your resources and things like that. So I mean, that stuff's hard to show on Twitter because it's without some sort of explanation about what's going on. It just looks like a mouse going around clicking on things.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's a large part of the game.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a lot, like you said, the exciting stuff is the bloodshed. But yeah, if you can sort of intermingle those things and people realize it's like, it's almost like a training simulator. You're training these people, plus a little bit of politics or morals on the side, then yeah, it's sort of, but yeah, definitely the violence. Sex and violence always sells. That's the
Yeah.
key. So you're doing it well from that angle. From the standpoint of, yeah, making this game, I mean, what tools are you using?
C++ and Allegro, which is
Holy
a
shit.
graphics library.
Wow, you are going hardcore. I mean, what most people when I ask them what are you using, they'll say Unity or maybe Unreal Engine or Game Maker or something. You're like, oh, bugger
Yeah,
all that. I'm
yeah,
I'm actually coding this thing. Wow.
yeah. You know what? I think it. Time will tell, but I think it might have been a mistake, to be quite honest, because
It takes
there's
a little
not
bit
much about
longer.
this game. Yeah, there's not much about this game that really needed to be done in C++. It was more of it was an ego thing. I'm not going to say it was mostly an ego thing. It was 100%. I
Uh-huh.
want to do this in C++ to prove that I can. And I'm not a great C++ coder by any stretch of the imagination. I've gotten a lot better, but I'm not good.
But that is pretty good. I mean, from a standpoint of like, I mean, apart from using Allegro, which for those out there that don't know, that's like a game programming library, but it's kind of bare bones. It kind of lets you say, well, here's the screen, here's some sprites and stuff, but it's not like, it's not say as feature rich as say Unity or even Game Maker or Construct, where a lot of it's just drag and drop, and you've got a screen where you can configure everything by filling out a few fields. Like when you're doing stuff with C++ and Allegro, it's like it's code, it's all code, right?
Yeah, makes you feel like a real man.
Real programs use C++ and Lira. Holy shit! That I didn't know that. Like looking at it, and again, because most Pixel games are done on one of these other engines, which is a bit pointing. That's pretty damn impressive. So, what I mean, apart from the ego thing, I mean, did you have previous employment doing C++, and that's why you went that direction, or?
No, I was a database programmer. I did some C Sharp and .NET stuff, but
Hmm.
C++ has always just been a hobby to do games.
I was going to say, because like .NET, I mean, I think Unity does C Sharp, so that would have been like an instant transition. But you thought, no, bugger that. I'm just going to go hardcore and punish myself. You must be a bit masochistic. Yeah, that
That
helps.
could be it. Yeah.
That helps. So, how's it going in terms of getting the exposure out there? Have you been to many conferences and other sort of demo things like that?
No, I'm a hermit. I generally don't leave my house, let alone town, so
Hmm. So you were going to
not much for
rely
conferences.
you're going to rely upon Twitter and YouTube and that kind of deal.
Yeah. Um, Between that and I think because like the game is Twitch enabled, so you can, if you're a streamer, you can play the game sort of with your chat. There's a lot of chat interaction with it,
Hmm.
so I'm kind of hoping, because that's still a new thing. I'm not
What does
obviously
that even mean?
on.
Like, what it's when they? I mean, I know about Twitch, right? And I know people like I've streamed some stuff on Twitch when I'm playing a game. But when a game is Twitch enabled, what does that mean?
So the chat can vote when, like, if your gladiator surrenders, say the chat can vote whether or not he lives or dies, because
Oh
the chat is
wow.
sort of the crowd, so they can say, no, that dude's dead because he sucks. And the player can't do anything about it. The chat can also vote on certain story events, but the player actually can still choose what they want, because it's an ethical sort of thing.
Uh
Like,
huh.
your chat might be a bunch of dicks, and they're saying, yeah, do the unethical fun thing, and you still don't want to do it. So we give the player the ability to choose that.
Wow. And so that's again all via like whatever API they give you, and you've got that working through C++.
Yeah, it's basically the backend for Twitch chat is just IRC, so it's basically an IRC client.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. So yeah. Wow. Damn, this game gets more impressive. Um, from that standpoint, though, like you've chosen to go down what most people would call like, the hard mode of game development, doing that way. Like you're doing a lot of the art, you're doing all the music, you're doing the actual gameplay in C++ and like just all this hardcore stuff. I mean, if you had your time over or you were speaking to someone who was just getting into game development, would you have any advice? Like, would you recommend that they follow your path, or that they try one of
No.
what
Oh
what
God,
what
no.
would you tell them?
I would say whatever works. And Unity seems pretty amazing. Unreal seems pretty amazing. Game Maker, I've seen a lot of great games done with Game Maker. And maybe 10 years ago I would have said, oh, because the stuff 10 years ago was all crap, and it was didn't really have an option. If you wanted to make a quality game, you had to start from scratch, and that's just sort
Uh-huh.
of where I came from. But the world isn't like that now. Like you can put something together in Game Maker and have your prototype done in a week, then absolutely do it. Like there's
Yeah. Have you ever considered partway through your journey, you just gone, fuck it, I could just take all of this graphics and redo a lot of this in one of these engines? Or have you thought, look, I've come so far, I may as well just keep pushing?
Yeah, I mean that was it. And the fact is, like, Game Maker, I don't know that I can do an IRC backend in Game Maker and a lot of stuff in Unity. I know it, I wouldn't be as fast to develop in Unity because I'd have to learn, how to use their IDE basically. And
Yeah, yeah.
from what I've seen, it's good for 3D stuff, and I see a lot of people doing 2D stuff with it now too. But it didn't look as intuitive as what I had already known from Allegro, where I'm already familiar with it, so I'm pretty quick with it.
Hmm.
But yeah, even halfway through development, I thought I can't switch now, because even if I can do all the things that I want to do in another platform, I might as well just finish this, because it'll be the same amount of time for me to learn Game Maker and figure out all the ins and outs with that when I know
Yeah.
most of the ins and outs with Allegro and C++. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a thing nowadays. Like, a lot of game developers aren't actually programmers anymore because and that's not necessarily a complaint, but because these game engines have made a lot of things easier, you'll have people that are like, this is probably my own personal bias talking here, but like, you'll see people touted as, oh, look at this hot new game developer. And you look at what they're doing, it's like they're using a completely point and click deal. And it's like,
Twine.
yeah, I was gonna say Twine. I'm like, yeah, but it's still, it is. I mean, I can't say it's not game development, but it's not. Yeah, I just don't feel. Maybe they shouldn't call themselves game developers. Rather, they're game makers. Is probably a better.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's a huge spectrum, because, and even myself, like, I think, yeah, I know a thing or two about game development, but I also look at, the guys that have been in the industry for like 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
Am I a game developer compared to them? Like, probably not. So yeah,
Hmm.
there's people who are not game developers compared to me, but I'm pretty sure that a real game developer, somebody that's worked at Nintendo for 20 years, that guy maybe he's a game developer. So
Oh, look,
yeah,
dude,
I don't know.
I
I
tend to
wouldn't get.
think if you've got something that is now sort of being out there, it's on Steam that can be like pre-ordered. That, I mean, from my standard, that is to, like, if you've got something that's on Steam, you're a game developer. Like, even if it is like a hardcore full blown RPG monolith, or it even could just be a Twine game, right? But if you're on Steam, you're a game developer. If you're making money from selling a game, I mean, you've got a finished product more or less, right?
Yeah, I mean, is that the cutoff? If you've sold the game, if you've made more than $1 selling a game, then I guess you're a game maker.
I think that's the deal, and it's probably whether you keep coming back. I mean, like, for you, for instance, right? You work as a database dude. I mean, would you like to make games? I mean, I suppose everyone would, but would you like to make games your full time deal?
Oh, I see. I actually have. So the past year, I've been just working on my game. I had enough of the government stuff and quit. My previous game, Corporate Lifestyle Simulator, was literally just about shooting up an office,
Uh
and so you could tell where I was at that point in time.
huh.
This was what my subconscious was working through, and it eventually got to the point
Did your
where it was like,
colleagues
I can't.
know about this game, and did they get worried?
It was funny enough that I think that they didn't. My boss had a good sense of humor, and he knew
Hmm.
that I didn't have a problem with him. It was more the corporate structure and the politics of it. So I didn't. They didn't fire me or anything, but it obviously was frowned upon.
Yeah, yeah.
But that also may have been because once in a while I would do a little bit of Photoshop work on the game when
Uh
I
huh.
probably should have been working. So
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. A lot of cubicle jobs. I mean, I myself, I'm a freelance, and I've been working from home for a few years because I've just vowed never go back to cubicles, because Yeah, I can agree with the whole. It's very depressing. It's very depressing being in an office with people and being a cog.
Yeah. It's funny how it's just sort of become the norm too. It's scary even because like I said, I've been out for a year, and I've the weird thing is I've been feeling happy, and it's such a strange sensation. I'm like, I
Hmm.
don't know what this is. Am I nervous? Am I excited? And then yeah, it's like, I think I'm happy.
Yeah.
What is this? And it was like, well, because today I got up when I wanted to, and
Uh
I worked on a
huh.
project that I wanted to work on,
Uh
and
huh.
I ate when I wanted to, and I showered when I wanted to, and I went out for a walk when I wanted to. And I was like, I have this freedom. I'm not rich by any means, but at least I have the freedom. And that was the thing that was killing me, was I had to get up, go somewhere I didn't want to go, and I was completely regimented all day. You had to be here. You had to sit here. It didn't matter if there was
Hmm.
work to do or not. You had to sit in that chair and stare at the monitor. So
So
yeah,
you were more or less one of your characters in Domino. You were a slave, but it's just this widespread.
corporate slaves.
Exactly, and it's this widespread sort of. It's in our society, in our culture. That's just like very widespread. It's just accepted. It's not like, and maybe that's what it was like back then when you were a slave. When you were a slave, like you didn't see it as like anything immoral or bad. You're like, this is just what I do. I get up every day. I get whipped. I got to carry shit all day long. That's what I do. Work for the man.
Yeah, I think they had it much worse than I did, but
I
my
don't.
life was certainly terrible. So yeah.
Yeah, you weren't exactly chained up. That's it. Yeah. So no, that's so yeah. So back to the game, Domina. It's been inspired by you watching Spartacus. You liked a bit of the. I mean, was did any of the old school games sort of speak to you? Like, is it inspired by any other games in particular?
I think the biggest game influence to me is FTL.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I mean, I think there are some similarities because it's sort of a crew management game. And I definitely look to FTL for things like pacing, like how long the game should be, and how many, what should the player be feeling here, and 2 minutes from now, should the player be excited or should they be relaxed, and trying to strike a balance with that. And I think FTL does a good job with that. Personally, that game has caused so much rage that I
Mm-hmm.
can't play it anymore because it's so RNG dependent, and if you get a bad random roll, it's like that. It just ruins your game. And I know a lot of people love that, but personally, I can't stand that. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted something that had sort of the pacing of that game, but didn't have the tough breaks. Like it was, I still want my game to be generally winnable if you know what you're doing. Not winnable maybe 10% of the time, 20% of the time. If you're really good, you might win it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like to, I want it to be a bit easier than that. But one of the things that I've been doing lately is that I have a difficulty slider, and what I've seen in games is that you usually have it like an easy, middle, and a hard mode,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of want this slider. I'm all about the slider right now because I'm like, well, I can tweak exactly where I want to be, and it gives me a really wide sort of berth so that I can make the game really, really easy for just not. I wouldn't say kids because I don't think kids should be playing this game, but people who are just really casual gamers, that still want that experience. They still want to see the violence and they still want it to win. Basically, it'll be just enough, just challenging enough for them. And then at the hard spectrum, you're gonna have you're gonna have to be a pro gamer. You're gonna have to have the drive like a speed runner. You're gonna have
Uh-huh.
to do it over and over again and just try to figure out the best strategy. So
Yeah.
to me, like that's something again I can't market. You can't tweet, oh, difficulty slider. Like nobody gives a shit. If it's not attached to a penis size, nobody cares. So
This is it, right? Yeah, it's sort of like one of those things. The only way I can imagine marketing that is if you show a zoom in on the slider and it's like on zero, and then you show the character just walking around prancing with the flowers, and then slide it up to the middle, and then maybe one arm falls off, and then you slide it up to full, and he explodes and blood flies everywhere. I mean, that's the only way you could actually market that. But yeah, most people just go, it's a slider, man. It's a slider. But that is actually a cool concept because yeah, a lot of games sort of stick you in a difficulty, and sometimes there's that uncomfortable feeling where medium is too easy for you, but hard is just too damn hard. You would like something in between, so that's where yeah, the slider's not a bad idea.
that's where I'm going. That's what I think too.
That's a good deal. So you've got this currently on Steam for pre-order. It's due out very
Well, it's not.
soon.
It's not pre-order. It is the Steam store is up, but you can't
Oh, it's
pre-order
up.
yet.
Oh, okay. So when are we? What do you reckon? When are you going to have it ready
I'm
by?
I've seen people do pre-orders, and I'm afraid to take people's money and not give them something immediately.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, that would be like the whole, having to get up with the alarm clock ringing in the morning, working for the man type thing. When you've got people relying
Exactly.
upon you, you don't want any of that pressure. You just want to, you finish it when you finish it. It's like Michelangelo painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It'll be done when it's done.
When it's done, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
You know what? For the first 2 years, I was like that, and then a couple months ago, when I actually got the Steam store like set up, it needs a date. They force you to put a date in. So I thought, well, I'll just pick something in the future, and I'll be done in a couple months. And
hmm
as it was started approaching, and I was sick for a while, and I was out of the country, and then I was like, you know what? I'm losing a lot of weeks of coding here, and I actually have this deadline coming up. I
hmm
better start working. And the interesting thing is that having that goal has actually motivated me even more. Like I was working on it a couple hours a day every day, but now I'm sort of working on it like all day every day, and I'm getting a lot of work done, and I'm not burnt out. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. I was always afraid of that deadline, but so anyway, it's like April 3rd, I think, is the
hmm
deadline, and I still feel confident I can make it. So
hmm
hopefully,
Well, it's looking pretty good, man. And so I wish you the best with that. And thank you
thank you.
again for, taking time out of your day, out of your busy coding
Thanks.
schedule.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
No worries,
I wish
man.
you luck with the show too.
Oh yeah, like if I can get more guests like you who are just straight up and down with what you're doing, then yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Well, you take care.
You too, man. Cool.